Welcome to the presentation on formative assessment and parental involvement. Colgan found that students only spend 14% of their hours in grades K through 12. Therefore, schools cannot be held completely responsible for the end result of a child's academic growth. That means that we really need parents involved in their child's education. What is formative assessment? A good example of formative assessment is if you have a child that's on a basketball team and the coach corrects him for dribbling the ball incorrectly. That's just giving him a tip on doing better. He didn't get a grade, he didn't get kicked off the team. That's formative assessment. The definition I have here says formative assessment is when the teacher sees the student doing work incorrectly and corrects them. It is better to do this without giving a grade. However, sometimes teachers do give grades. Also, teachers use this in their lessons when teaching. When they notice that a student has a misconception, they might back up to step 1 and start teaching it in a different way. I want you to think about for a minute when you got your driver's license, when you took the driver's test. Did you have to take it more than once? Do you know someone that might have had to take it more than once? The ACT and the SAT. Think about this for a minute. Do you know anyone that had to take this more than one time? And then the bridge in Murfreesboro, the new one. I've heard that it did not get finished in time. However, the workers were given more time to finish up the project. All of these are real-life examples of when people get a second chance. So my point is that students deserve a second chance in class to correct their work and to get full credit. What does the research say about formative assessment? Ainsworth states that by using formative assessment, that over time one will truly see improvement in student achievement in teaching. Popham found that descriptive feedback is preferred to grades. Willem found that students that have been taught using formative assessment can make twice as much progress in 1 year as the students that were not taught that way. Clute found that formative assessment used for math had a greater effect than when used for other subjects such as reading and writing. And student, teacher, or computer directed formative assessment were found to be effective for math. So the teacher does not have to feel overwhelmed using formative assessment all by herself. Black and Willem found that the gains in achievement from formative assessment are amongst the largest ever reported for educational interventions. And formative assessment helps the lowest achievers and our special ed students the most. What does research say about parental involvement? Regardless of race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status, parents want to help their children to do well in school, and they're willing to help. Henderson and Mapp found the following results from parental involvement. Students made higher grades. They performed better on their high-stakes achievement test. That's like our Tennessee Ready test at the end of the school year. Enrollment in classes that were more challenging improved. There was an improvement in attendance, better adaptation to school, better social skills, student behavior improved, and more classes were passed. Also, Lamb had 3 students pass the New York's high-stakes assessment 1 year. He made a great effort to involve parents through test prep workshops, and he really worked on building relationships. And then he saw that 57% of the students passed the English Language Arts test and 74% passed the math test. And then in a subsequent year, he had over 90% of his students pass both tests. So that is phenomenal. Okay, so what do I need from you all? This especially is for the teachers, this next part. I need you to get in the mindset of being like this. You want students to do their work, you want students to correct their work. If they don't, you're going to go track them down on the bus and say, hey, I still need you to correct this. If you can't catch them on the bus, maybe you'll catch them out eating dinner with their family somewhere. Hey, I need you to correct this work. You didn't correct it in class. Maybe you'll catch them at a birthday party. Show up at a birthday party and say, hey, got a present for you. I need you to correct this work. What if they don't correct it? Well, maybe you'll show up at their wedding someday when they grow up and say, hey, excuse me, before you say I do, I need you to just correct this paper real quick for me. If that doesn't work, maybe you can show up when they have their first baby and say, hey, still need to correct this work for me. And if need be, show up at their funeral, knock on the coffin and say, hey, can't die yet, I need you to fix this work. I know this is a silly example, but I need the teachers to have the mindset of you students have to fix this work. I will say that my students did an awesome job this last year. They corrected their work. No one complained. And it's probably the first year I've ever had all students do their work. It seems like I've always got one student that absolutely wants to refuse every day to do what they're asked. So this is just the mindset that I had. This is an exaggeration, but I did stay committed to having them correct their work. What do I need math teachers to do? Give students fast feedback, not too fast though, and not too slow. Give it to them while they're working. The reason why you don't want it to be too fast is, if you look at number 2, you never give the answer without first having them tell you what they think. You may then give them a hint, and if need be, give them the answer eventually, but get them to thinking. That is very good for them, and it actually makes learning stick, according to Brown from the book called Make It Stick. Number 3, allow students to correct their work for full credit. 4, allow students to take work home to complete it if needed. Give them a few days. Waiting until the next 9 weeks is not okay, but give them some time. Number 5, allow students to ask you what words mean on their test, during their test. 6, allow students to correct their test for full credit. 7, progress monitor each test. I will give you a sheet for that. 8, meet with each student about their test. 9, have parents sign the progress monitoring sheet weekly. And 10, make contact weekly with parents. And this can be text, email, phone call, whatever they prefer and what works for you. What do I need the parents to do? Help your child correct their work in a positive way. If it starts getting stressful, stop, because that's going to be harmful to the results in the work, and maybe go back to it later or the next day. Never give them the answer without first having them tell you what they think. Then you may give a hint if needed, and then eventually give the answer if they still can't get it. 3. Sign the weekly progress monitoring sheet. And 4. The teacher will make contact with you weekly by note, text, phone call, etc. And feel free to contact them in the same manner when needed. And that wraps it up for formative assessment and parental involvement. Thank you for your time, and just let me know if you have any questions.